Welcome back to Unlock, Empower, Transform. I'm Shay Blackmon, and if you're new here, this is the space where we get real about leadership, culture, and building organizations where people actually want to show up and do their best work. So, episode 40, that's a milestone. And I couldn't think of a better topic for this moment than something I've been passionate about for over 2 decades in HR leadership: the power of diversity. Not diversity as a checkbox, not diversity as a buzzword you throw on a careers page. I'm talking about diversity as a genuine competitive advantage that transforms how your organization thinks, innovates, and wins. Today's episode is called The Horror of Homogeneous Hiring: Why Diversity is Your Superpower. And yes, I said horror. Because if your hiring process keeps producing teams that all look the same, think the same, and approach problems the same way, that's not stability. That's stagnation in a nice suit. We're going to dig into strategies from Chapter 3 of my book, High Value Leadership. Transforming organizations through purposeful culture, talk about what it really takes to build inclusive cultures, and I'll walk you through CBC's diversity assessment framework. Plus, I've got a quick exercise for you, something you can do in 10 minutes that might completely shift how you think about your team composition. Let's unlock this conversation. Okay, let's start with an uncomfortable truth. Most organizations don't have a diversity problem because they're intentionally exclusionary. They have a diversity problem because they've gotten comfortable. They hire who feels familiar. They promote who reminds them of themselves. They build teams where everyone went to similar schools, has similar backgrounds, and unsurprisingly, comes to similar conclusions. And then they wonder why innovation has stalled, why the same problems keep resurfacing, why they're losing market share to competitors who seem to understand their customers better. Here's what I've learned from over 2 decades in HR leadership across manufacturing, automotive, and healthcare. Homogeneous teams create echo chambers, and echo chambers don't produce breakthroughs, they produce groupthink. In Chapter 3 of High Value Leadership, I outline what I call the diversity imperative: the recognition that varied perspectives aren't just nice to have, they're essential for organizational resilience. When you have people who've navigated different experiences, faced different obstacles, and developed different problem-solving approaches, you get solutions that one perspective alone would never see. There was a manufacturing company, let me just say it was in Michigan because that's my backyard, that struggled for years to reduce turnover on their production floor. Leadership kept implementing the same retention strategies: bonuses, pizza parties, you know the drill. Nothing worked. When they finally brought in diverse voices, including frontline workers, people from different cultural backgrounds, employees with caregiving responsibilities, they discovered the real issue wasn't compensation, it was scheduling flexibility and lack of advancement pathways. The homogeneous leadership team had been solving a problem that wasn't the actual problem because they couldn't see past their own assumptions. That's the horror of homogeneous hiring. You keep solving for the wrong things. Now, here's where it gets interesting. Diversity without inclusion is just optics. You can hire a beautifully diverse team, but if your culture makes certain people feel like they have to shrink themselves to fit in, you haven't solved anything. You've just created a revolving door with better demographics. Building truly inclusive cultures requires intentionality. It's not passive. It's not we treat everyone the same. Because, and I say this with love, treating everyone the same in an unequal environment just perpetuates the inequality. Inclusive cultures do a few things consistently. First, they examine their systems, hiring, promotions, performance reviews, meeting dynamics for hidden biases. Who gets interrupted? Whose ideas get credited? Who gets assigned the high visibility projects versus the office housework? These patterns reveal culture more accurately than any mission statement. Second, inclusive cultures create psychological safety. People need to know they can speak up, disagree, and bring their full selves to work without risking their careers. This isn't about being soft. This is about being smart. You don't get innovation from people who are afraid to share their ideas. Third, and this is where leaders often struggle, inclusive cultures hold people accountable. It's not enough to say you value diversity. When someone makes a comment that marginalizes a colleague, when meeting dynamics consistently exclude certain voices, when promotion patterns show bias, leaders have to address it directly, consistently. In my work with organizations, I've seen leaders who genuinely believe they're inclusive, but their teams tell a different story because inclusion isn't about your intent. It's about the experience you create for others. And sometimes there's a gap between what we think we're doing and what's actually happening. The good news, that gap can be closed, but it requires honest assessment and commitment to change. At CBC, we use what I call the 4 pillars diversity assessment. This isn't about counting heads, it's about understanding the health of your diversity ecosystem. Pillar 1, representation. Yes, numbers matter, but we look beyond the surface. What does representation look like at every level? Because having diversity at entry level but homogeneity in the C-suite tells a story about your culture's actual commitment to advancement. Pillar 2, experience. We assess how different groups experience your organization. Engagement scores broken down by demographics, retention rates, promotion velocity. If your diverse talent is leaving faster than your homogeneous talent, you don't have a pipeline problem, you have a culture problem. Pillar 3, systems. We examine your processes, from job descriptions to interview protocols to performance evaluations for structural bias. Sometimes the barriers aren't intentional. They're embedded in systems that were designed without diverse perspectives in mind. Pillar 4, leadership behavior. Culture flows from the top. We look at how leaders model inclusive behaviors, how they respond to bias incidents, how they develop diverse talent, because you can have all the policies in the world, but if leadership doesn't embody them, they're just paperwork. This framework is part of what we bring to culture transformation engagements. And it's why organizations we work with don't just improve diversity metrics, they build sustainable, inclusive cultures that drive business results. Because at the end of the day, diversity without the infrastructure to support it is just tokenism with better PR. All right, let's make this practical. I promised you an exercise, and here it is. I call it the Diversity Lens Assessment. It takes about 10 minutes, and it might shift your entire perspective. Grab a piece of paper or open a notes app. I want you to think about the last 3 hiring decisions or promotions in your organization, or in your team if you're a manager. Question 1, who were the final candidates? Write down their backgrounds, not just demographics, but educational background, career path, thinking style if you know it. Question 2, what criteria drove the final decision? Was it culture fit, potential, experience? Be specific. Question 3, who was on the decision-making panel? Did they represent diverse perspectives? Question 4, looking at the person who was selected, do they bring perspectives your team was missing, or do they reinforce perspectives you already had? Question 5. If you're being brutally honest, was there any candidate who was dismissed too quickly? What was the real reason? This isn't about guilt, it's about awareness. Most bias operates below our conscious radar. When we bring it into the light, when we actually look at our patterns, we can start making different choices. This exercise comes from my transformation work with organizations, and it's powerful because it moves diversity from abstract principle to concrete practice. Try it. See what you discover. And if you're uncomfortable with what you find, good. Discomfort is where growth begins. Now, I know some of you are thinking, okay, Shay, but what about results? Fair question. The research is clear. Organizations with diverse leadership teams outperform their peers financially. They're more innovative. They have higher employee engagement. They understand their customers better because their teams reflect the diversity of their markets. But here's what I want you to understand. Diversity isn't just good for business. It's good for people. It creates workplaces where more individuals can thrive, contribute, and advance. And when people thrive, organizations thrive. It's not either or. It's both and. If this conversation is resonating with you, I want to invite you to go deeper. My book, High Value Leadership, Transforming Organizations Through Purposeful Culture, lays out a comprehensive framework for building cultures that attract, retain, and elevate diverse talent. Chapter 3 specifically dives into the strategies we touched on today, plus implementation roadmaps you can start using immediately. And if you're ready for intensive development, if you want to transform not just your understanding, but your actual leadership practice, my high value leadership intensive course is coming. It's designed for leaders who are done with surface level solutions and ready for real transformation. Make sure you're following me so you don't miss the announcement. Before I close, I want to talk about resilience. Because here's the truth: doing this work, challenging the status quo, building inclusive cultures in organizations that may resist change, it takes something out of you, especially if you're someone who's been on the receiving end of exclusion. That's why I created the SHIELD Resilience Strategy Guide. SHIELD stands for self-awareness, healthy coping, internal resources, external support, learning orientation, and daily practices. It's a framework for maintaining your strength and effectiveness while navigating professional challenges. The guide includes tools for recognizing your stress signals before they overwhelm you, scripts for handling challenging workplace situations, and a 30-day implementation plan, because you can't pour from an empty cup, and this work requires you to be at your best. Download your free copy. The link is in the description. And while you're there, drop a comment. Tell me, what's one thing you're going to do differently after today's episode? I read every comment, and I love hearing how this content lands for you. On Thursday, we're talking about the 90-day culture turnaround, quick wins that last. Because sometimes you need momentum fast. We'll cover what you can actually accomplish in 90 days and how to make those wins stick. Until then, remember, your diversity isn't just a demographic, it's your superpower. Own it, leverage it, and help others do the same. This is Shay Blackmon. Keep unlocking your potential, empowering your teams, and transforming your culture. I'll see you Thursday.